The Sahara Desert, synonymous with death, is the place where, in 1994, a man suddenly vanished from amidst a crowd of 134 people while running a marathon. Neither his body nor any trace of him was ever found. Then, 9 days later, he miraculously reappeared across the border in an unknown location. This is the story of Mauro Prosperi, an Italian police officer whom even death itself refused to claim. Welcome back once again to the videos of Shadow Atlas. Viewers, this heart-stopping tale concerns an Italian police officer named Mauro Prosperi who possessed a deep passion for the pentathlon. This is a sport that hones an individual into an expert in skills such as fencing, swimming, horse riding, pistol shooting and running. This passion for the pentathlon was ignited during his tenure with the Italian National Police. Indeed, it was this very training that instilled within him the virtues of resilience and an indomitable spirit, a refusal to ever give up. One day his friend, Giovanni Manzo, told him about the Marathon des Sables, the Marathon of the Sands, held in the Sahara Desert. It is widely regarded as one of the most grueling races in the world. To grasp the sheer terror associated with this race, consider this. Not only must a participant cover a distance of 251 kilometers entirely alone, but they must also accomplish this monumental feat within a strict time limit of just 7 days. The most perilous aspect is that, throughout the entire race, the runner must carry all their essentials, food, cooking gear, clothing and other necessities, on their own back in a backpack while running. The race organizers provide only water at each checkpoint, and in some instances, a tent to provide shelter for the night. Mauro Prosperi and his friend Manzo both decided to participate in this race. As part of their training regimen, they began running 40 kilometers daily and practicing with reduced water intake. On April 10, 1994, when Prosperi was 38 years old, this ultra-marathon commenced from Fomsguid, a remote settlement in Morocco. This region, located in the Tata province of southeastern Morocco, marks the point where the Sahara Desert begins, in all its formidable grandeur. A total of 134 competitors, including Prosperi and Manzo, participated in this ultra-marathon race. The first 3 days unfolded exactly as expected. Together, the pair successfully covered a distance of 96 kilometers. The terrain was extremely arduous. In some places there were hard-crusted salt flats, while in others there were rocky outcrops and towering sand dunes that stretched as far as the eye could see. They would begin running early every morning, during the coolest part of the day. The desert was so vast that each participant would eventually become separated from the others, running in complete solitude. The rules stipulated that each competitor had to navigate the route independently and reach the next designated checkpoint on their own. Every participant carried a survival kit which included a compass, and for use in the event of getting lost, a signal flare gun. The race consisted of a total of 6 stages. On April 14, 1994, Prosperi and his friend entered the 4th stage. This was the longest and most grueling phase of the ultramarathon, as it required covering a distance of 85 kilometers in just 2 days. It was midday. The sun was scorching, and the temperature had soared to 46 degrees Celsius. Prosperi picked up his pace, leaving his friend Manzo behind as he forged ahead alone. At that moment, Prosperi spotted a dust devil forming ahead of him, and within moments, strong winds began to whip up directly in his path. After running for 32 kilometers, as the wind intensified, Prosperi altered his course slightly and climbed atop a sand dune to shield himself from the direct force of the wind. However, these winds had by now escalated into a terrifying sandstorm. Amidst these treacherous conditions, Prosperi realized that if he stopped moving, he risked being buried alive beneath the shifting sands of the storm. He continued to run, right through the heart of the tempest. He thought he could see the trail markings. But in reality, it was merely a mirage. Within moments, the landmarks vanished, and he found himself miles ahead of the rest of the racers. Evening began to fall. Darkness closed in, yet no checkpoint came into sight. It was then that Prosperi realized he was completely lost. The storm had left his skin raw and red. His nose was bleeding, and due to the constant inhalation of sand, His throat had become so swollen and parched that it felt like a thorny thicket. In despair, he spent the night beside a bush. Covering his face with a towel, he drifted off to sleep, hoping that the morning sun might reveal a new path. The weather on the morning of the 5th day was significantly better. Prosperi continued running relentlessly for the next 4 hours. When he scaled a massive sand dune and scanned the horizon, he was utterly stunned. There was no path, no sign of life. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but an endless expanse of sand dunes. By this time, Prosperi's water supply was nearly depleted. To maintain hydration, he was left with only one option. Driven by desperation, he began to recycle and drink his own waste fluids. The sun of the 5th day was just beginning to set when, suddenly, a sound reached his ears, the sound of a helicopter. He felt as though his prayers had been answered. Without wasting a moment, Prosperi drew his flare gun and fired a signal to catch the pilot's attention. But perhaps fate had other plans. The intense glare of the setting sun completely drowned out the flare's light. The pilot failed to spot him, and the helicopter vanished from sight. Prosperi was once again left alone in that silent ocean of death. He had come to the realization that no one would be coming to look for him anymore. Now this battle was strictly between his own courage and the merciless elements of the Sahara. On the 6th day, after walking for several hours under the scorching sun, he spotted an old, dilapidated structure on the distant horizon. It was an ancient shrine that had lain abandoned for centuries. Prosperi felt a surge of renewed hope, thinking he might find some locals there, or perhaps a water well. However, when he stumbled inside on unsteady legs, there was not a single living soul to be found, only an old grave, where silence was his sole greeter. Yet, Prosperi did not lose heart. He pulled a small Italian flag from his backpack and planted it on the roof of the shrine, in the hope that a passing aircraft might spot it. But the real struggle was against hunger and thirst. His body had withered away, reduced to skin and bone. Just then his gaze fell upon the bats hanging from the shrine's ceiling. The sheer will to survive drives a human being to do unimaginable things. Prosperi caught the bats. Using his pocket knife, he severed their heads and began drinking their warm blood, in a desperate attempt to replenish his body's fluids. For the next few days, his survival depended entirely on these bats, along with whatever lizards and small insects he could find along the way. Then, in the far distance, he spotted an airplane. To catch the pilot's attention, he had nothing left, not even fuel, to start a fire. Driven by desperation, he set fire to his own backpack. But fate had other plans. The smoke that rose was instantly dispersed by the fierce winds of the Sahara, and once again, the pilot failed to spot him. It was now his 7th day in the Sahara. The setting sun and the crushing solitude were eroding his mental faculties. He had become convinced that he would not make it out of there alive. It was at this juncture that a terrifying thought crossed his mind. He did not wish to wait any longer for death to claim him. Using a piece of charcoal, he scrawled a farewell message to his family, and to embrace death, slashed the veins in his wrists. He lay down inside that ancient shrine and closed his eyes, waiting for the morning sun to find him dead. Yet, even death turned its back on him. Indeed, due to extreme dehydration, his blood had become so thick that instead of flowing out, it simply clotted right within the wounds. When Prosperi opened his eyes, he was astonished by the sight that greeted him. Following this incident, he realized that even death had rejected him, meaning his true destiny lay elsewhere. He bandaged his wounds and, with a newfound resolve, stepped out of the shrine. Having stared death in the face within those walls, Prosperi felt a surge of new strength coursing through him. He took out his compass and set off toward the distant mountains. He traveled only during the early morning hours and in the evening twilight. During the scorching heat of the midday sun, he would rest beneath a bush, while at night he would bury himself in the sand to conserve his body heat. Along the way, whenever he encountered a bush or plant, he would squeeze its roots and survive by drinking the bitter drops of sap he extracted. To sustain himself, he even chewed on raw snake meat and consumed various small insects. His body had now become a bone structure, and he had lost about 15 kilograms of weight. On the 8th day, he looked at some greenery. It was a small oasis, where the water looked muddy. He wanted to drink water, but his throat was so dry that every drop felt like a descending thorn. Still, he drank the water, and throughout the entire day he quenched his thirst. On the 9th day, when he walked, he had become absolutely exhausted. Then, there appeared in the distance some goats in the sand. He reached the goats, where he saw a little girl grazing them. For the first time in 9 days, he was looking at another person. Prosperi immediately ran toward that girl, but his appearance was so wild and terrifying that the girl ran away. The girl came back with her grandmother. Seeing the critical condition of Prosperi, they took him in and offered him food. But his digestive system was so weak that he vomited everything. The nomads placed Prosperi on a camel and sent him to a nearby military camp. There he was attended to by the military personnel. When his location was finally calculated, it was found that Mauro Prosperi, after entering Morocco, had wandered deep into Algeria. He had drifted about 291 kilometers away from his racetrack. His wife and family back home had lost all hope, but when his first call reached his house after 9 days, celebrations erupted across Italy. Prosperi was kept in the hospital for several days. Doctors said that his internal organs had become so damaged that death seemed certain, but his courage did not let him die. Surprisingly, even after such a horrific experience, the passion did not end for Prosperi. He later participated in this very race 6 more times, and even secured the 13th position. Today, Mauro Prosperi is over 70 years old, but his passion remains exactly the same. He says that the Sahara Desert, which almost took his life, taught him the real meaning of living. We hope you will like and share this video from Shadow Atlas. Thank you very much for the love and support of the viewers. See you in the next fantastic video.